it just doesn't get easier. The more we age, the more sarcomeres we lose in our muscles, our bone density changes. No time like the present, because it's not going to get easier if you wait. This decision I'm about to make is either going to send me closer to my goal or it's going to back me up. Try and celebrate the little wins along the way, because I don't think we realize that we have the power to change the trajectory of our health course at the end of our fork.
All right, good morning, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Fit Vegan Podcast. Today we have quite a different setup if you're watching on YouTube. I'm currently in Iowa, Davenport, and I'm here recording with one of our amazing Fit Vegan superstars. All right, welcome to the Fit Vegan Podcast. I'm your show host, Maxime Sigouin, and I'm the founder and CEO of Fit Vegan Coaching, a company that is on a mission to help 10,000 people get lean, thrive, and reduce their risk of chronic illnesses by 2033 and 1 million by 2050. I believe that having a fit, healthy body and mind is the foundation to living an incredible life, and this is what the show will give you if you choose to listen and implement. Enjoy the episode and have a great day. Beth, how are you doing today?
I'm great, Maxim. How are you?
Good. I'm happy we're able to record in person.
Crazy that you're life size.
Yeah. So
instead of our Brady Bunch squares, huh?
I know. Am I a little bit taller than you thought I'd be?
A lot.
A lot taller? Yeah. You can't tell on Zoom, right? Because
No.
It's just the upper body. Yeah. No, well, it was a nice road trip drive because we drove from Chicago to over here. I didn't get to see the beautiful scenery because it's a little bit darker when we drove over last night. But today we'll get to explore around as we go do a workout together later today.
Yay.
Yeah. Well, again, I've already had you on the podcast as a Fit Vegan success story, but we're gonna cover different tidbits of the transformation because as we were talking before recording, there's a lot of we talked about contentment, we talked about what do you call it, arrival fallacy. So I definitely want to dive into those components of your transformation. Okay. But just for the people that potentially didn't listen to the first episode, do you mind doing a little introduction as to who you are, obviously what kind of work you did before you were retired, and what kind of transformation you got?
Okay, well, let's see. My name is Beth Bryant, and I am from the Quad Cities originally. I have 6 grandbabies, age 8 years to 8 months, and they're the light of our life. We have 2 rescue dogs, Kobe and Wrigley. Kobe Bryant, see what we did there?
Nice.
Yeah. And I, as of September 14th, on my 64th birthday, I've been retired 2 years as an orthopedic physical therapist.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
And what kind of transformation do you see through our time? Because you're in your 5th month now. You started reverse dieting already.
Yeah, so it's been incredible. As you said, months 1 through 4, did the first part of the blueprint, and that was great. I learned a lot of lessons along the way. And then this past month, I've started reverse dieting. And I have to tell you, I've learned once again to trust the process, because when I heard I was going to get more calories, I'm like, woo, bring that on. And then I was like, oh, I bet Sarah's going to add like 500 calories a day. And then she's like, so we're going to go up to 1550. I'm like, wait, what? I think we have a bad connection. Where's the other 0, Yeah. But I'm like, nope, trust the process. And it's been going great so far.
Yeah. And so, throughout your first 4 months, you've lost 17 pounds. You got an incredible shift in body composition. You got a lot of great comments when we posted the last podcast that we did together. A lot of great comments from the members as well. They're very supportive of your journey.
Great.
Yeah. So let's kind of just go over a little bit what made you want to start the program 5 months ago.
Sure. Well, I think I said in the first podcast, and I don't want to be too redundant, but what Fit Vegan has done for me is many things, but one of the biggest ones is it helped me reduce decision fatigue. Like I'd be like, what do I have to eat? And I know what to eat. I know what I don't want to eat, but it was always like, what am I going to have for lunch? And then I'd go to the gym and I'd be like, what exercises do I want to do? So now I have a meal plan. Now I have a gym plan, and I just do what I'm supposed to do. And so I don't have to decide anymore. And it sounds crazy maybe, but that's taken a whole host of effort and bandwidth that I don't have to expend now. So that was huge.
Yeah.
And Maxim, when I chose Fit Vegan, it was really important to me to finally get to the point where I raised the white flag and I said, I need help. And what gets me is I don't know what happens when it's just us with our bodies. But let's say your car started making noise. What would you do? You'd take it to a mechanic right away, right?
Yeah, don't wait till it
Wait till it
crashes.
falls apart, right? Or if, you need your taxes done, some people do their own, I know, but you go to the expert, you go to the tax accountant, right? And so I don't know why, though, we use this active surveillance approach with our bodies. It's like every year at our physical, it's like the blood pressure goes up, the weight goes up, the hemoglobin A1C might go up, the cholesterol goes up. So we say, oh, well, we'll just see what happens next year. And it's like instead of addressing it and finding the expert to that problem, we just let it go. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, I feel like human nature will wait till the last minute for like a lot of things.
I know.
Right? It's, again, silly example, but you look at your fridge. A lot of people will wait till it's absolutely empty to go grocery shopping versus like, hey, let me leave at least like 10% of my food in the fridge and then go grocery shopping and kind of get ready for it. But health is one of those things that, I'm happy that you took on, because again, you're already eating healthy, you're already exercising before. We just needed to kind of optimize what you were doing to get the outcome that you wanted ultimately.
Right, exactly.
But yeah, it's that thing of it will require effort and it will require for you to do things differently. And a lot of the times people are attached to how they're doing things. And so that it's not necessarily the action, but it's a detachment of I've been doing things a certain way and I kind of like my routine and it feels uncomfortable to change it.
It does, yeah.
So how was it for you to adjust to, again, you already exercised, you're already eating healthy before, but how was it to adjust to this new method of doing things?
It was hard. I think it's human nature to have that pride to raise the white flag and say, I need help. I need to bring in an expert here, And if we treated our bodies also like we treat our houses, like if the ceiling's leaking, you don't just wait for it to become a flood in your living room, right? You call a roofer, or, if your furnace goes out in the middle of winter, you don't just put on another parka. You get the HVAC guy out, right? So if we did that with our bodies, that would be very proactive. And, I think we just think, well, we're just going to let it ride for a while. Things will improve. But like I think I said last time, if nothing changes, nothing changes. And, I think I also said the definition of insanity, Einstein said, continued to do the same thing and expect a different result is the definition of insanity. So we come to a juncture that we can continue the same or we can make a change, because it's, that old, again, death by analogy, right? But the devil is better than the devil that you don't know, but really it's not always, we're comfortable. We stay in our own little routine, but is that getting you where you want to be? And if the answer is no, then you got to do something different, right?
Yeah. I feel like there's a lot of people believe that by not necessarily changing anything, that they're somehow maintaining. They're falling into maintenance, right? It's like, well, I don't have to do anything right now because it's not as bad right now. But by default, if you're somewhere where you're considering some nutrition or some fitness changes, you're considering losing weight, you're probably not in an optimal position. And the habits that you had brought you there. And if you change nothing, you're not going to maintain. You're just going to slowly continue to get worse until you get to that place of raising the white flag, like you shared earlier, where now you start to ask help, right? So the fallacy of I'm maintaining how bad I am and I'm not getting worse, but I'm not getting better, but I'm not getting worse. Like you are by default if you're not actively changing the habits that brought you to where you are.
Exactly. And it's a slow fade, right? It doesn't happen overnight. And by just not going forward, the best you can be is neutral. And really, like you said, it's a regression. So you're missing such an opportunity to take a step toward wellness. And Maxim, that's the other thing. Like for me, it always comes back to health.
Yeah.
And I've been in the medical community for like 39, that's a big number, 39 plus years.
What, but you're only 30.
How does that math work then? In utero, no. But the thing is, and I'm proud of the medical profession in general, but one thing I have to say, in medicine, we're really good at doing treatment of acute problems. Like let's say you have a sore throat and swollen lymph nodes, you go to the doctor, they do a strep screen, it's positive, they put you on an antibiotic, and then 48 hours later you're good to go. Or you have right lower quadrant pain, and they see that your appendix about to burst, so they do an appendectomy. So that's good. That's something we do well.
Yeah.
What we do really poorly in America is treat chronic disease. And, this is not by any means an original analogy, but I think it's very apt. And it's the difference between lifestyle medicine and regular allopathic medicine. And I'm sure you've heard it, and I'm sure many of your listeners have heard it, but it's like you turn on your kitchen faucet before you go to bed. Well, the next morning you wake up and predictably your kitchen is flooded, right?
Yeah.
And so in allopathic medicine, we give people the bucket of lisinopril or losartan for their hypertension, or we give them the mop of Crestor and Lipitor for their elevated cholesterol, or we give them a towel of metformin or GLP-1 inhibitors for their rising blood sugar levels. And the difference is what lifestyle medicine does is it walks across and it shuts the faucet off.
Yeah.
Right? It stops the bleeding. And this is exactly what Fit Vegan is doing. I mean, with whole food plant-based emphasis, exercise, you've created a community. You talk about sleep hygiene. I mean, you guys have just about every pillar of lifestyle medicine there is. But I think, when it comes back to health, that's the other reason. I mean, yes, not feeling your best or not having the energy you want, but you're changing the trajectory of your health when you do some of these things. And that's worth it, man. So worth it.
Yeah. Because if you think of, continuing the bad habits, like you mentioned, the water is still running in that scenario.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yep.
And it's, if you continue to eat the processed food and not exercising the way you've been doing it, you're not maintaining, you're by default attacking your health every single day.
That's
you're
right.
attacking your body, attacking your immune system, and you're just making things worse down the line. And then it's that common story that we hear all the time. The person gets diagnosed with cancer. I have no idea how this could have happened. I wasn't unhealthy, but I wasn't healthy, and I thought I would be fine. But those little impacts stacked on decades make a huge difference. And I think, that's why as we get older, there's a higher risk, of dealing with those chronic illnesses, because I think also like the food industry changed a lot, in the past few decades. And so I feel like that's why now younger people are getting sicker, are kind of getting diseases that only people in in their 70s and their 80s would kind of be dealing with. So it's that taking action. So I'm curious for you, what was it that made you start to take action on your health and fitness, like before Fit Vegan? Like what was it that made you want to kind of get into this lifestyle?
For me, Maxim, I saw my cholesterol go up and up and up, and I was just like, man, I gotta stop the bleeding here. I gotta do something different. So I did a foray into whole food plant-based eating. And when we conclude, I'll tell you a little story, a self-deprecating, silly story. But I had to do something different because I was of that mindset. If I continue to do this, my future is painted. I mean, you look at people who, especially with women, a lot of times, and I don't mean this as a scare tactic, but sometimes when they have an MI or a heart attack, their first symptom is their last symptom.
Yeah.
So you gotta turn the ship. You gotta do something to turn the ship. And so I did a deep dive into a lot of the best practices when it comes to eating and lifestyle habits, and by far, whole food plant-based eating and exercise check the boxes. So I was like, okay, let's give this a go.
Was it going down the road of looking at scientific studies, or was there like a specific documentary, book, or something that kind of introduced you to that world?
Well, all of the above. I had this voracious appetite for information. So I got the certifications from eCornell and Wellness Forum Health and all that. I read so many books. I mean, by Dr. Esselstyn, T. Colin Campbell, Neil Barnard, Dr. Greger, of course, those easy little reads of Dr. Greger's.
Yeah.
I have to admit, I put those on audiobooks so I could listen to them when I worked out because I was like, dang. But just chock full of great information and citations that back it up. It's not just your opinion. It's not bro science, right? It's documentation. So, and then I watched typical Forks Over Knives, Game Changers. Game Changers came out later, but Forks Over Knives, What the Health, all those documentaries, Ocean Robbins and the thing he and his dad have done. So then I did all that and I started following podcasts, Simon Hill and you and Chuck Carroll and Dr. Khan and Rip Esselstyn and all the heavy hitters in the industry. And it just it compounds. You say consistency compounds, right?
Yeah.
But even consistency in what information you have coming into you compounds.
Yeah. How did you filter through that information, right? So I'm just thinking of some of the listeners or people that are, debating on taking action towards like eating healthier and kind of exercising. A lot of the lines that we'll hear often and people wanting to work with us, kind of that introductory call that you did with Ivy is, I just need to get a little bit more information before, right? I just need to learn a little bit more about nutrition. I just need to learn a little bit more about fitness before I kind of do this, or before I take this on even just by themselves. And the other big one is, it's not coming up to me right now. The fitness and nutrition was like, I already know what I need to do. I already know everything. I'm just not doing it.
Yeah.
So from someone that has an extensive background in that, and that you took the time to study, that you were in the medical space, why were you able to ask for help even though you already had a lot of knowledge in that space?
Right. Well, I think the thing is, you look at the outcomes of your life and you're like, are you where you want to be? And I think, again, we talked last time in the video, there's a subset of people who say, I can do this myself. And they do. And you're like, good for you.
Yeah, that's
but
a small percentage.
Percentage. And then there's a subset of people like I was in that said, I can do it myself. And I would say, how's it working for you? Are you seeing the results, right? And I think there's also death by analysis, and I tend to fall in that group too. It's like, and I think you should be informed. I think you should read and you should watch and you should fill in the gaps for yourself. But if you wait for the perfect time to start, you're never going to start. And the other thing is, make yourself a little N of one, as we say in research. Try this on yourself. Be your own little lab assistant and see. I betcha 4 months from now, you'll be like, I'm so glad I did. I mean, what better proof is there than experimenting on your own person? I mean, what's the worst you can say? Like, I don't like quinoa, or I don't know. What's the worst you can say?
Yeah, I think it's a pretty good experiment to make as well, right? Like, I feel it was the opposite. Eating McDonald's and Burger Kings, it doesn't feel like that great of an experiment. I'd be more scared to do that than I would to eat whole food plant-based and start to exercise.
Absolutely.
I don't see a negative downfall
Me either.
in trying that.
Me either.
How was it different than when you came into the program? Because again, you had a lot of knowledge in nutrition and fitness. How did you notice that the structure was different that you now know is what allowed you to transform successfully?
Well, there's been a number of things, but I, again, said in the last video, I don't want to be too redundant for the listeners, but
Don't worry, they don't, some people didn't listen to
They
it
don't
yet.
even remember, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So one of the big things was, I remember when Coach Sarah said, we're going to pay more attention to your protein macro. And I'm like, what's this about? And then, oh my gosh, when I started because again, I would eat north of probably 65 grams of fiber a day, but I was hungry all the time. And so then when I started focusing on protein, making the meal protein centric, I was so much more sated and so much more full. The other thing is, and I hate to admit this, and I'll apologize to Sarah to begin with, but we have the ability in Fit Vegan, for those listeners that aren't part of the program yet, we can be on a group call almost every night of the week.
Yeah.
And so it just so happened that my schedule works best with Tuesday nights, and that was the night that Sarah has a mind-body kind of mindfulness workshop. So I have to admit, when I first heard that it was like mind-body, I was like, uh-oh. Because I have two left brains. I'm completely math and science. I have no artsy-fartsy part of me. If I try and draw, my stick man will have a scoliosis. It's bad, right? So I thought, I like double-blind placebo-controlled trials. I like meta-analysis and crossover studies and epidemiology when we need to. And so I thought, oh man, is this woo-woo? Because I don't do woo-woo, right? I live in a gray zone, which is probably a character flaw, and I apologize, Coach Sarah. I was completely wrong. And if you think about it, the mind, Maxim, is the generator of everything. Yeah. It can either take you closer to your goals, or it can sabotage you and send you further away. And I learned so much between you and Coach Sarah. I learned, Okay, so I'm kind of a binary thinker. Good, bad, right, wrong, black, white. I don't live in the gray much, which is probably not good. But
I did a whole group call on that a few weeks
you
ago.
Did. I know, I heard. And so like in the past, if I would have taken a bite of a cookie or something, I would be like, well, I'm just going to eat the whole plate. And then I'll, like you said recently, I'll start on Monday. Or for me, it was like, I'll make it a New Year's resolution. Yeah, but it's April, so that's not going to work. Got a few months to go. So I heard things like, make the next right choice. Consistency compounds. Like if you go to the gym and you didn't work so hard the time before, win the next gym workout, right? And I remember once you said, take imperfect action. And I literally got hives. I'm like, I don't take imperfect. I do now, you know? So, I mean, that was so worth it because I was just like, this is it. Like the mind-body connection, it's either going to work for you or against you. And I've learned such great tips in all the group calls. So
so how are you able to live more in the gray within this aspect of your life now?
For sure, because I wouldn't have survived very long or very well if I would have stayed in my self-limiting philosophy. So
and I feel like that's the secret for everyone, right? I feel like we attract who we are. So by default, I'm a type A perfectionist person that, tends to overload a schedule, working on it, right? Recovering perfectionistic. But usually the people that struggle with their weight are either they're not going to be type A where they're just not self-motivated at all and they don't want to do anything. But I feel like if people listen to the podcast or are in the program, they have some aspect of being type A.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And for those people, it's like the secret is learning to live in the gray. Because if you can't live there, that bite of a cookie turns into a box. It turns into 2025 New Year's resolution, basically.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And, we were talking the other day about the all or none law thing and about going after the next shiny thing. That was on a recent podcast of yours too. And another thing I've learned, Maxim, in Fit Vegan is it's the journey that changes you much more than the end point. I mean, I love my end point. I love going into my closet and being able to pick out anything I want to wear and knowing that it won't be tight or too snug or too whatever. So I don't want to minimize that at all because that's huge, right? But there's a concept in psychology called arrival fallacy. And basically it's like, I'll be happy when I get fill in the blank, the next new exciting thing, whether it's a Rolex or that I've arrived or it's a something
body,
material.
House, car,
all of the above. But studies show that you're not. Like if you're happy at the end, it's fleeting, and then you're driven on to the next thing, right? And I remember the first marathon I ran. I mean, my husband ran it with me, and we did all the things. Like I dialed in my hydration and my nutrition, and I knew the clothes I was going to wear, and we read a lot of books on marathon mentality and what to face. And so we wrote it all out with the 18, 20-mile trainings, and then we got to our first marathon, which was in the Outer Banks, and we completed it, and they put the medal around my neck, and I was really proud of myself, because that's kind of rarefied air, it's pretty cool, right? But then that wears off, and what I realized, it's the person that I became along the journey where you can do more than you think you can do. Our bodies are capable of putting out more than we think they are. So that arrival fallacy, if you change and grow during the journey, then that helps to mute that a little bit at the end. So
hey, let's dive into that because I think there's very important. I don't get to have this conversation with a lot of people. The whole journey aspect is tricky, right? I'm sure you can admit to that. As you're going through it, it kind of feels shitty a little bit. It doesn't feel as good as when you get there and you look back, right? Because you get there and you look back, you're like, wow, I became this person. But as you're becoming that person, it's not sexy and it's not exciting. And I think that's what people get confused with when we say enjoy the journey. They're like, am I supposed to be happy the whole way that I'm like, watching my nutrition and I'm meal prepping, I'm like working out? Like, you're not going to be happy the whole way through. Right. You'll have down days, you'll have bad days, you'll have up days. A lot of days you're going to be in the neutral. So it's like, it's once you get there, it's not the thing or the accomplishment is that now you get to look back of like, wow, look at this person that I've become to get to this place. And once you get to that place, I think media and the way that the world is shaped now drastically affected how people deal with getting to an end goal. Because think if there was no social media, there was no phones, there was no timer on your watch to look at your pace and look at your time, there was no finisher board at the end of a race. Like if you just said, I'm going to run a marathon with this amazing group of people that is, health oriented, and you guys all run together and you finished a race, you would feel so much better about yourself than if you saw like, oh, one of my splits was really slow. Oh, I could have finished 20 minutes faster if I did this instead, right? Or when you post it online, you see someone else that finished, 5 minutes faster. It's like, I could have pushed a little bit more, and you don't appreciate the end point. And so I feel like there's a component of somewhat isolation and celebrating for yourself versus publicly that would help to reinforce the fact that you did a good job and that you are the type of person that can be in that position. Yeah, there's an element of going public with it that kind of destroys like the beauty and the appreciation for what you accomplished to a certain extent.
Right. I agree. Yeah. And I think the thing is, when we think about social media, it's always this compare and contrast thing. It's like, oh, well, they did this, or look at their kids, or look at their house, and it's always this massive competition. And, I think to stave some of that off, you said in a podcast recently, the people that are successful are the people who can tolerate boredom the best.
Yeah.
And I think there's something to that. Like let's not paint a crazy, wonderful picture. I mean, it's hard, right? Because if you fail to plan, you plan to fail with this big time. But I think the thing is taking small steps, and enjoying the wins when you get them, right?
That's why we start all the group calls with wins too.
Absolutely. And that's just huge, is to appreciate what you have accomplished so far. And, I think if people really took the time before they made a decision, speaking of boredom maybe, but to say, okay, this decision I'm about to make is either going to send me closer to my goal or it's going to back me up from my goal. And to be intentional, turn down the noise of the world a little bit and think when you eat, think when you do things, and just try and celebrate the little wins along the way, because I don't think we realize that we have the power to change the trajectory of our health course at the end of our fork, right? Yeah. And the little inconsequential seeming decisions we make each day, like I'm going to the gym. I mean, it's not convenient, and I'd rather sit here and binge on Netflix, but the better part of valor is I'm going to do this. And like you said, it's not sexy to make all those little in-the-moment decisions, but they compound, and they push you towards your goals, and they get you to a point where months before you couldn't even believe what exists for you. Yeah.
And it's that element of just continuing to show up and going back to taking imperfect action, right? And I think the reason why you were successful in the program, and I wouldn't even, use the training nutrition, because those were tools that were there to optimize what you were doing. But before you came in, you made the commitment to yourself that you were going to do this regardless of what it looked like, right? Because to a certain extent, you knew that we would give you meal plans and training and the group calls and all that, but you didn't know how it was going to take place. But because you made that commitment on the good days, on the bad days, on the okay days, you still showed up to the best of your abilities. And I'm happy that we've taught you to live more in the gray, because if you were to look back now and you only showed up on the days where you felt good and didn't show up on the days you didn't feel good, we wouldn't be sitting here.
That's right.
Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So in terms of you were able to lose 17 pounds, improve body composition, and about a month ago, you started your reverse dieting process. Just to explain for the listeners, I'm not too sure what it is. Basically where we help people speed up their metabolism post-transformation, help them eat more food to maintain their weight off. Mentally, what people aren't ready for is that it's challenging, right? The idea of I'm going to eat more food and the weight's not going to come back on after, right? Mentally, it's like, I'm going to eat more food. Yeah. The number on the scale is going to go up. Yeah. Like, I'm going to put on some weight. My clothes are going to get tight. I'll just go back to where I was. So and obviously that's not the outcome, right? The outcome is you stay around the same weight. So how has that been for you, taking that on from a mindset standpoint?
Well, it was exciting to think of eating more. I'm not going to lie.
I saw Sarah's notes on your profile. You love sandwiches.
I do. I love sourdough. It's a fermented food. That's what I keep telling. But yeah, I mean, I think there's always that fear. And, you know, you think of people who've lost a lot of weight too. When that scale starts to go north instead of south, there's a real fear factor.
Yeah.
So just by adding in calories, I'm like, oh, is this going to send me backwards? But, you know, that's the point of the accountability. That's the point of the weekly check-ins, you know, standing on the scale. And if it did go up appreciably and you didn't do anything else to justify it, then, you know, you adjust down a little bit. So, and you're still doing this under the guidance and accountability of coaches. Yeah. So you know, that helps the fear a little bit too. It's like not all on me. You know, I can have you and Sarah in my court and your watchful eye on how it goes. So
yeah, it's definitely, like you said earlier at the beginning, like trusting the process, because it is one of those things that if you start to make emotion-based decisions by yourself, right? Because you joked earlier, it's like, I thought I was going to add an extra 500 calories per day to reverse dieting, but it's like, hey, 50, maybe 75 extra calories per day for a week, right? Yeah. And just let's watch how your body responds, give it a chance to adjust to it. Yeah, 500 would be too much. You put on fat if you went that fast, right? But it's those smaller increments, and I don't think people realize how important it is. I feel like once people are done losing the weight, they kind of relax a little bit. And then they go into reverse dieting. It's the opposite. You need to tighten up even more during reverse dieting. And then after you're done, then that's kind of when you relax, right? Because we'll build you up to a place where you consume a lot of food, you do a lot less exercise to a healthy, sustainable level. Right. And then there's more of a relaxation because your body can process more food. Yeah. So it's the kind of keeping things tight during reverse dieting, because you can mess it up just like a fat loss. You know, you go and eat an extra 1,000 calories one day because you want to go eat out at a restaurant, or you order some food in at night. The reverse dieting is the same thing, but your body's like a sponge during reverse dieting, even more than during fat loss, because it's been in a deficit for a while at that point. Yep.
But again, we come back to trust the program. Trust people smarter than me that know how to do this, you know, because I remember thinking, that's half a banana. Like, well, you know, come on, Sarah. Cough it up a little bit more. But no, I think that this is where I want to be vigilant, because I want to learn the tools, Max. Yeah. I mean, when I finally graduate, like, I want all the tools in my tool pouch. So if life throws a curveball and I take a step back, and life happens, you know, that's just been there, done there, got the t-shirt, right? I mean, that happens to all of us. So I want the tools, not only how to lean out and to have calorie restriction and body recomposition, but I want to know the next step too, like how I work myself gradually out of the mess I recreated. So
yeah. And, you know, once you graduate, the whole point is, as you've gone through this journey, our hope as coaches is that we've imprinted this new blueprint in your mind of what happens. Like you said, if ever life throws you a curveball, there's so many things we can't plan for. Like, we've had members that, you know, they got sick, right? One of them got cancer, and then they had to deal with that. They beat it, but they put on some weight with it. Some of them ended up having a kid, and they didn't really plan on having a kid. And so they put on some weight, and they came back to kind of lose the weight, or at least they had that blueprint to kind of revert back.
Oh, absolutely.
But, you know, if I was to ask you at the beginning of the program, and for a lot of people, if I ask them right now, like, if I ask you to drop like 10 pounds right now, what's the first thing your brain thinks of, right? Cut the carbs, low calories, ton of cardio. Yep. Usually that's what people revert back to, right? But did we do any of these things with you? Right? Exactly. We didn't cut the carbs. We didn't do a bunch of cardio, and we didn't severely cut your calories. We were really slow and methodical.
Yeah, completely different than what you would think, you know, and that's why it's effective, I think.
Yeah. How was that for you when you started to kind of just go slower in your calorie deficit and not do the usual approach that coaches would use of, hey, we'll put you on an hour of cardio a day. We'll cut your food by 500 calories.
Oh, it was delightful not to have to do that anymore. But it was a weird shift because, you know, being more on way more on the cardio heavy than I was on strength training. And I just don't know why in the world I was like that. And you know what, Maxim, I wanted to remember to tell you, another thing that was an eye-opener for me is Sarah gave me walking lunges, right? And I was like, easy breezy, cover girl, got that, right? Yeah. Oh my gosh, I look like a drunken sailor. I couldn't believe how bad my balance had gotten.
Yeah.
Like I shouldn't have to wear a helmet in the gym to do walking lunges. And I realized, back when I was in practice, if I had a patient with a lower limb injury, I always did balance and proprioceptive exercises, single leg stance, eyes open, eyes closed, and I'd do it with them. Well, then fast forward 2 years of retirement, my balance had gotten so bad. And that was something I didn't even realize in the program that was a plus. But no, there was the emphasis shifting from cardio to weight training. That's the secret sauce. 100% completely.
Yeah. And we'll do some very painful leg exercises today during our workout.
Lovely. I can't wait.
It's, it's interesting that you bring that up because you're like, I thought I had better balance than that. Maybe the past 2 years, we've been coaching more people between their 50s and their 80s. And I'm noticing that as I'm talking with them, and even people up in their 40s, I see a bunch of them. We ask them to do exercises, or I just hear them talk and they see someone playing basketball or football. It's like, oh yeah, no, I can do that. When you watch a TV show like Gladiators or whatever, you're like, oh, I can definitely do that. I'm way better than them. But I feel like there's the part where you were super fit at one point in your life, and at that point of you could have done it, and your brain still thinks that you're in that position, but you haven't done those movements in a long time. And then Ivy and I were watching some funny videos, and it's a guy trying to play football against another young guy, and just twisted his knee and fell on the ground because he thought he was 40 pounds overweight, and he still thinking he had it in him. And so, yeah, I feel like as we all age, continuing to do the strength training and staying in that type of shape, and not saying that you're going to be, in peak condition. If I ask you or me to go do an Ironman right now, we wouldn't be at peak performance to do an Ironman. We'd probably get by. It would be very painful. It would take us a lot longer than if we actually trained for it. But, you have the ability, you have the strength, you have the mobility, you have the stability now to live your life and do what you need to do without your body being a limitation.
Right. It's
just realizing that, being careful when we say oh yeah, I can do that. Yeah, that was 20 years ago. The body's different at this point, right? Unless you kept up with it.
100%. And that's the thing. For those who might be listening who are on the fence, it just doesn't get easier, Maxim. It doesn't get easier. The more we age, the more sarcomeres we lose in our muscles, the weaker we get, our bone density. It doesn't get easier. So, like they say, no time like the present, because it's not going to get easier if you wait a year or two.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this. Was there any... because you're doing more cardiovascular exercise before, and a lot of people, that we coach in their 60s, 70s, and 80s will have a fear of resistance training, right? Obviously, there's a fear of injury, and potentially not knowing how to do the exercise properly. So how did you overcome that?
I was never afraid of it. I have, because of my background, even osteoporosis now, it used to be we just said, weight-bearing exercises, right? But now we know the strength training impact for osteoporosis and osteopenia. And I do think, though, that you have to be very careful and watch your form. Because if you do it an aberrant form, you could hurt yourself, right? And that's why I still watch all your videos before I do the next exercise on my new sheet to do, because you want to be safe when you do it. But I was never afraid. I feel like if there was, I tried to do renegade push-ups the other day, and I was like, holy mother of God, what am I doing? I can't move. I'm stuck. But, so I have learned the great art, as most of your Fit Vegan clients probably do, is you can modify something. No one's going to stand over you except maybe later today. No, but with a whip saying you have to do it that way and you have to do this many repetitions. And I never have really pushed myself to failure. That was just not something I've ever done. So the whole reps in reserve thing, I was kind of like, But, you've got to be safe. And as long as you follow the form that's outlined by Fit Vegan, you modify it to challenge you. And so I guess that was never a real concern of mine, because again, I trust the experts. If you tell me to do something and you show me how to do it, I assume it's not going to be bad for me. So
absolutely. Yeah. Right? And that's why we have those videos there. And that's why I took the time to record all these videos. And that's why we're also recording our workout videos after this, is so that also for you, I can give you some feedback live on the forum, but also for the people listening, they can be like, I thought deadlift was dangerous. But I'm like, but if you do it properly, right? Yep. Just came back from Chicago recording with another client, And she said she hasn't deadlifted heavier than I think 60 pounds or 50 pounds.
Yeah.
And so
Yes.
I brought her up to 90. And then because I gave her some tips, we warmed up properly, warmed up the glutes, opened up the hips and everything. And she did 90 pounds. And then I was like, we should do your body weight, which is 115. And she's like, well, I've never done 90 before. I was like, yeah, but 90 was really easy. You can tell when you looked at it. And so, okay, we'll go up to 115. We built her up and then she pulled it. And
Holy
she did a great
buckets.
job. Yeah,
Wow.
she pulled her body weight at 50. So I was like, hey, this is doable when you have the right form and you're properly warmed up. So yeah, we'll put you through a good workout today and set a new standard for what a hard workout is.
Yeah, last time I weighed, I was at 78 pounds. Yeah, so let's get that.
78-pound deadlift.
131, okay.
I weigh 40 pounds less than the bar that we're going to put the weights on. Yeah.
Oh, dear. Yeah, please. Let's modify.
So, as you some question about reverse tidings. A lot of people are curious about that.
Yeah.
What, any changes you've noticed so far in terms of increase in food? Has there been energy, recovery, hunger, satiety? Because it's only been a month and a week or so, right?
Yeah, a month and a week. I would say, this is funny that you asked this because I thought of this the other day. I feel like I found a new gear. I'm kind of like a border collie to begin with. Give me a project or I'll find one, right? I'm kind of high energy like that. But I feel like I do the same things, but much easier now. I mean, so I feel like I found kind of a new gear.
Yeah. The increase in food will do that. There's going to be different stages of it. When you're about 200 calories from your maintenance, you'll kind of hit pretty much the
and that's
top
what
tier.
I am. I think my maintenance is 1740, and starting next week I'm at 1650. So
okay, so once you get closer to once you get to that maintenance point, you'll have peak energy, peak strength. You'll notice you'll be able to lift heavier. The weights will feel lighter. Recovery is going to be better, but you should notice it already at this point.
I better back off the caffeine if that's the case.
Yeah. Well, we're also going to be making a cooking video after this. We'll have you. We'll have a little mocha smoothie as a pre-workout for the gym.
Ready.
Yeah. So you recently referred one of your friends to do the program. So I'm curious what made it so that you wanted for her to be a part of the community?
Well, Pam has an amazing story. She went whole food plant-based and lost, I think, over 110 pounds herself. And just by following, the podcasts and reading and just being intentional about what she ate. But she was kind of where I was. She got stuck a little bit, oh man, those last few pounds are kind of difficult, and
they're hardest.
They are the hardest. Oh man. And so she asked me what I was doing, and I told her a little bit about Fit Vegan, and she and one of my other friends were going to the PCRM conference, and I said, hey, Maxim and Ivy are going to be there with Fit Vegan. Go say hi to him for me. And she did, right? And then she got so excited that she was like, okay, I'm going to give this a go. I'm going to invest in myself. And again, she got a lot of the credit for a lot of that weight loss. But as we talked earlier, especially when you've lost a substantial amount of weight, when it's starting to go the other direction a little bit, that has to be super frightening. So now she just texted me, and she's finished week 3 of Fit Vegan, and she is so excited. I mean, so excited. So she's a believer.
Yeah, all beautiful. Yeah, and you just mentioned that she got a lot of credit for losing all of that weight, and as she loses those last 10 to 15 pounds, she still gets the credit for that, right?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
We're just a tool.
Yeah.
As a part of the toolbox, like you illustrated earlier. When you build a house, you don't say thank you to the saw and the hammer. You say thank you to the builder, right?
Exactly.
You guys are the builders. You're the one doing the work, all the heavy lifting. We're just, being like, hey, here's how you should lift, and here's what you should lift to kind of build a house. All right.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't thank the hammer for building a house. You guys did all the hard work. You did your squats, you did your push-ups, you did your meal prep, you did all the work.
Yeah.
How is it for you to have obviously you get connected with the community in the program, so you do make friends through there, but from a friend that you had prior to the program that you've known for a long time, how is it to have her as a part of the community on a similar journey as you?
Well, it's really fun. I mean, to have somebody live that you can go out to coffee with and talk about it. And, since I'm further ahead in the journey, my goal was to kind of speed up her learning curve too, to tell her some of the mistakes that I've made along the way or the successes maybe, and give those to her additionally so she can think about those as well and speed up her learning curve a little bit.
All right. Well, if you're comfortable, can we dive into that?
Sure.
Yeah, because we have a lot of members listening that are newer to the program, maybe people that will be jumping in the program.
Yeah.
So what are things that you've shared with her to kind of speed up the learning curve?
Well, I definitely told her, again, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. I mean, you have to create margin in your life to do this. And so, I told her that the meal prep days are super important because it's very helpful when you get hungry to grab the meal that you've already made and heat it up. Because I think that's, at least for me, if I'm going to go off the rails, it's when I'm super hungry. And also finding time in her day to make sure that the gym workouts are sacred. And she does. She's a very planned person also, like you said.
She has to. She lost 110 pounds, right?
Yeah, she's very much, I'm not telling her anything she hasn't lived, I'm sure. But she, and I also told her about the benefits of strength training. I don't want to say to the exclusion of cardio, but that as a focus. And I also told her about the protein-centric thing because she was in the same boat I was, that a lot of meals, a lot of fiber, and then she had told me when she started looking at it from a protein-centric standpoint, that's really helped her as well. And she was very low fat and very much minimize all oils and stuff. And now there's some, not excessive at all, but some extra virgin olive oil and some of the things. And so she, and I told her, my biggest take home is always trust the program. It may be a little bit foreign to your comfortable way of doing things like it was for mine, but again, how were you? So go with the experts. And she's very excited. And you said the other day in a podcast that people you find that have had the most success are the ones that hop on the group calls and interact in the Fit Vegan chat. And so I urged her to do that as well, to get that good information coming in. She's very balanced and very bright, so she'll do great. I can't wait to see how she does.
Yeah, and she's gonna be there at dinner tonight.
She is gonna be at dinner tonight.
Awesome.
Yes.
Well, excited to see her again.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the trust in the process. I feel like it has come up on every episode that we've done with members, and we're celebrating in November. It's gonna be 4 years of doing Fit Vegan podcast.
Wow.
And I think I should just clip all the people saying trust the process. All of our clients along the way, just be like, that's the biggest lesson. Just trust the process.
Yep.
But I love what you shared. It is foreign to a lot of people, and it is uncomfortable to change your ways. And so I think just there's this little period of adaptation that you have to go through and understand that it will be more challenging, and it will be uncomfortable, not in a bad way, but just uncomfortable in that you're adapting to something new and a new way of doing things.
Right. Yep.
Yeah. And so, for having lost 110 pounds and just for you to having lost weight, like the last few pounds are always the hardest because the more weight you have to lose, you can just cut out soda and a lot of people will drop 20 pounds right there, right?
I hate those people. Just walk into this.
But the thing is, the more weight you have on, the easier it is to lose. But as you get leaner, the body, your body thinks of, okay, I've lost all of this weight, which to your body, it's not overweight and unhealthy. To your body, it's like, hey, this was stored energy in case we didn't have access to food. We had a
survival.
lot of it's like you had a security account, a financial security account
in adipose tissue.
But then you drained it. You start to freak out when your security account gets low. That's what the body's doing. It's the same thing. It's like, hey, we don't have a lot of reserve left because it still thinks that's it's in the ice age time and there's a saber-tooth tiger and you don't have you can't store food. You don't have access to a lot of food without knowing that there's a bunch of grocery stores around.
Exactly.
Yeah. So it'll put up a fight. Those are the hardest one. And
amen.
I'm just putting that message out there for the people that lost 50, 60 pounds. Are like, I can lose the last 10 to 20. Like maybe you could, but it's very challenging. The body's going to put up a fight. It's going to hold on to it. And it's going to be more stagnant in terms of like drop on the scale, right? It's going to be very slow.
Yep. And we like to see those big gains, right? Those low-hanging fruit, big wins right away. I mean, it's a society of instant gratification. You like to see that right away, right? But when you get towards your end point and you get close, it's more painstaking, but you stay the course.
So let me ask you this. How did you stay the course? Because we've been doing this for a long time now. I've coached a lot of people. There's different types of people as they get closer to their goal. Some of them, they're excited. They're like, yeah, I'm going to continue crushing it. And then I'll get into kind of reverse dieting. But some people are like, I'm close to the finish line. I can pull back a little bit. Hey, I'm kind of there. And then they kind of step back. They slack on the food. They slack on the workout.
Yep.
So what kept you going through the finish line versus kind of being like, finish line is right there. I'm close enough.
It was fear, Maxim, because since I'm in the reverse dieting, I'm like, if I screw up now and I get on my little withing scale, which I have a love-hate relationship with, if I get on that withing scale and it is up, Coach Sarah's not going to increase my calories. So it was fear.
Yeah.
That's the answer. Fear-based.
That is such a good answer because again, it is fear, but in a positive way because the reward is that we're increasing the food, not removing, right? It's like if you don't overeat and you stick to what you're supposed to, we'll give you more of it, right? We won't remove.
Exactly. So positive fear is a good motivator, right?
Yeah, that's the first time I hear that for reverse dieting. That's funny. But it is true. It is a reward where it's like, hey, this week, your body responded really well because you ate all of your food and you didn't go over or you didn't go under, right? Because going under would mess it up too. It's like, hey, here's an extra 75 to 100 calories. Yeah, but you're almost at your maintenance. And honestly, once you get to your maintenance, that is also a theoretical maintenance. So you might actually be able to go higher, right? Because in theory, there's the average population, and that's where most people would be for age, high level of activity, weight. But a lot of times, some people are like 100 to 200 calories over. And so
that would be a shame.
It would be a shame to eat 1,900 to 2,000 calories a day of food.
Exactly.
How have you found it in terms of like freedom? Because, it's kind of like having a bigger budget per day for food. So you can kind of allow yourself to be a bit more flexible, when you're eating with your partner, you're eating with friends, you're kind of eating out. Have you noticed a little bit of that difference in freedom yet?
Well, it's controlled freedom. Like my husband and I went to Punta Cana a couple months ago before I was in the reverse dieting. But I took some safeguards. Like I'd take my overnight oats in sacks. I took a glass mason jar, but I would also take my protein shakes with my Fit Vegan shaker. Yeah. And if I got really hungry, because it's lavish and it's an all inclusive and there's food around all the time, anytime. So I had a little taste of what it would be like to decide on my own. I made my meals protein centric and then tried to just think, okay, yes, it's an all inclusive and I paid for this, right? But I don't want to use that liberty to go way the other way. Yeah. So my newfound freedom, I'm a little bit guarded with, because now it's not till next week that I start up to 1650. So my half a banana, I've guarded it, but I just, again, I don't have to worry about it because you guys worry about it for me right now. So as long, my meal plan says 1650. So, okay, I just do that. And then I know I'm hitting it correctly. So it takes that fear factor away that it's not all on me yet, so. Yeah.
I love the all you can eat, for resorts. It is such an interesting concept to me. I have personally never been to like usually I'll rent an Airbnb and I'll just kind of do my own thing from there. But every time I hear people talk about it or go to it, they're like, well, I want to get my money's worth. So they drink as much as they can, they eat as much as they can. And I remember the days when I would be on vacation and I'd have a meal that was quite dense and heavy. I would feel so terrible the next day that it made me not enjoy my vacation.
Right.
So that all-inclusive aspect, like I get it, you paid a nice chunk of money to be able to be there, but I don't know if you'd actually I wouldn't personally enjoy it if I was just like eating that much crap all the time to get my money's worth.
Right. And you also have to say, why am I here? I'm here for the beautiful scenery. I'm here for the relaxing element. I can read a book. I can do nothing something all day. And so that's the motivator to me and I don't drink, my husband and I don't drink alcohol anyway. So, you feel like you're kind of paying for somebody's alcohol. And then if you don't eat, you feel like you're paying, but that's not worth it to me. Not at all. I look at the other positives on why I'm there versus that. So.
Yeah. Definitely a month in the program is more expensive than the alcohol you're losing out on. So it's like, hey, you want more months in the program, or you want to eat the food?
Cost benefit analysis there.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Yeah. Another question I have for you is, this is my first time in Iowa. I've never been here before. I've never been to Chicago too. It's kind of starting to travel more of the states this year. I went on Apple Maps and I typed vegan, and I think there was 2 spots that came up. How do you navigate being not only vegan, but more on a whole food plant-based side when there's not a lot of restaurants available around you? And I'm going to assume that I feel like you have quite a nice community because there's like a few people coming to dinner tonight.
Yeah.
Like, how do you navigate being not in some of those central vegan hub spots like Oregon, LA, New York, and all that?
Well, what I think I miss the most is we don't have a Whole Foods for 3 hours. We have a Trader Joe an hour away. Yeah. So it's not the classic food desert, but it's not the mecca of vegan eating. So, and it does get tiresome, Max. And when you go and you order something and you're like, yeah, but leave this out, leave this out, leave this out, leave this out. And you're like, so by the time it gets bastardized into the food that you actually have in front of you, you're like, I don't really recognize that as what was on the menu. But, what do you do? I live here and I do the best I can. Usually like Mexican restaurants, things like that, I can always order, black beans and rice and things like that. So you like in life, it's a metaphor for life, right? You make the best choices you can and you do what you can. So.
Yeah, just asking because a lot of our members are from more like central, mid United States. So we have a lot of people from LA, New York, and some of those hub spots, but a majority of people don't live in those hub spots for veganism. And so a lot of them are like, hey, I'm the only one in my community and in my family that is vegan. And then on top of that is whole food plant-based, right? It's even more niche. And so, how did you build your community around here for that?
Well, the nice part is T. Colin Campbell used to have the Plant Pure Nation pods, and then they were kind of not bought out but started to be run by PCRM, right? So now we have healthy communities. And I do a lot of lecturing on the relationship between food and chronic disease in the community base, like at our libraries and things. And so over time, we've intercepted a lot of people who were vegan curious and would ask questions about it. And we'd work with them to try and, talk to them about their health and how it's so much worth it to make some modifications. And so gradually over time, we just started adding people that either heard a lecture or were on their own journeys, and then they looked for like-minded people. So maybe they went on like PCRM's website or Plant Pure Nation's website to look for like-minded people. And so we have what we call, once a month we have a plant luck. We don't call it a potluck, we call it a plant luck. And it's got to be compliant with PCRM's. The recipes we bring have to be compliant with PCRM's. And it's so nice because, there's probably 24, 25 people that come, but we each bring a different recipe, and you post your recipe there, right? So you can sample. It's like a little buffet that you can sample things and go, oh, I want to recreate that at home. We usually have a speaker of some type. One of our members that you'll meet tonight, he has a podcast. So you find like-minded people. I think it's normal to look longitudinally for people who are in the same have the same values or the same, interests that you do, like sports teams or, dare I say in this climate, political things. I'm a Democrat, I'm a Republican, I'm an independent. You look for like-minded people. So I don't think this was anything different. I think people are attracted to similarities. So we're chugging along with our little plant lucks and just try and spread the word when we can. So that's fine.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I'm happy you're able to build a community in person. I think that makes a world of a difference. It's been we went to the grocery store this morning. It was called V.
Hy-Vee?
Hy-Vee,
yep.
Yeah. It was interesting. It took me a while to find, the almond milk. There was like an oat milk session, but it was like no almond milk. It's like, do they not like almond milk?
Welcome to my world, yes.
So it was an interesting experience going in there. I found types of Oreos that I just saw types of Oreos that I didn't even know existed. We don't have those in Canada. I've never seen them in LA. But it's I I've definitely become bougie from living in LA. Like I have to live near a Whole Foods to, a certain capacity, in a Trader Joe's. I have to be
That's
in the
probably
vicinity.
advantageous.
Yeah. I have to be.
Have you ever had smoked tofu? One of my girlfriends lives in Chicago, and when she comes, she brings me these smoked tofu packets.
Yeah, smoked tofu.
Oh, so good.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm not going to drive 3 hours for it, but it's so good.
Yeah. Just get her to ship it to you. Let's jump into final thoughts for the podcast. Anything specifically you'd like to share?
Well, I have one little story. And so I'm sure I've dispelled this myth so far in our podcast, but lest you think I'm anything special, I am not. Like my mom and dad thought I was special, but they're going, no. But the point is, if I can do this, anyone can do this. And I've got a little story of illustration that when I started my vegetarian to vegan journey a long time ago, we didn't have the prolific number of cookbooks and podcasts that we do now. So I remember I went on the internet and I downloaded 2 recipes for myself. And I thought, okay, I'm going to start on a whole food journey here. So I took it to Hy-Vee. And I was in the section of like superfoods and stuff, and I thought, okay, I'm gonna look at my recipe, get all the ingredients, and give it a go. And I must have looked lost, much like I would look if you transported me into a fabric store. So I was just like, I must have looked lost. So this gal who worked there came over and she said, "Can I help you?" And I said, I sure hope so. I said, I have a couple recipes, and I'd like you to. If you wouldn't mind, help me find some of this. And she's like, great, let's go line item by line item. And I said, okay. So I got my little recipe sheet out and I said, here's the first thing, I need quinoa. And she was like, she looked at me like the RCA Victrola dog. And she was like, and I showed her on my list right here, quinoa. And she's like, that would be quinoa. And I was like, oh. Yeah, quinoa. So the point is, if I can start from there and be successful, anybody can start from anywhere that they're at on the spectrum of things and be successful. And I wish I could teleport those on the fence with me to right now. Like sometimes we don't know how unwell we feel till we feel well. And I just feel like, take the plunge, do the next right thing, take the step.
Yeah, quinoa is my new favorite type of grain now. That's how I'm going to call it at home.
She was kind. She was very kind. Like, what?
Yeah. And I feel like, teleporting people to the after to get a sense of what it feels like, that'd be such a great superpower to have because, you don't know how well you tolerate how you feel because you don't know how much better you can feel. And so kind of what we talked about earlier, thinking that you're maintaining, but you're not actually, you're actually regressing really slowly until eventually you get a point where, you get sick or you realize like, hey, there's an extra 50 pounds on the scale. I should probably do something about this when you could have done something at 25 pounds. That's
right.
Yeah.
No time like the present, I say.
Absolutely. Well, Beth, honestly, a massive thank you for taking the time to record with me today. We still have some cooking video we're going to be doing today and a workout. Which, should leave you sore for 2 to 3 days.
Lord,
May need a wheelchair on the second day, but you'll be fine. You'll be fine.
Oh, gosh, this is attractive sounding by the minute.
It'll be a good workout. You'll feel sore, but it'll be a good amount of soreness.
Sounds good.
Yeah, so I appreciate you for jumping on. And for everyone listening, if you enjoyed this podcast episode, let us know in the comment section below. If you are on YouTube, Abby and I have been traveling more to record episodes in person. So if you enjoy these little setups and us connecting with members and recording cooking videos and workout videos, then let us know and we will be doing more of them. And I feel like a lot of members, I've gotten a few messages from members like, hey, are you coming to my town soon? I was like, hey, we're planning some trips for 2025 and we're trying to bundle up kind of like we did with this one. Yeah. So and if ever you're in LA, come and say hi. We'll do a workout and bring you to our favorite vegan sushi spot.
Will do. And thanks for all you guys do. It's been a game changer.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you doing all the effort. Like I said, we're just the hammer in the construction, right? You did all the hard work.
Sounds good.
Awesome. Well, thank you everyone for listening, and we will see you in the next episode. Bye.